And a slight bit of error there with the overlay. Good evening and welcome to Talking Points. This is our weekly show where we discuss all things Tottenham. Tonight's Talking Point is about who our next young star is for Spurs. And I'm joined in the house by Mike-Hotspur Hustler, Stuart Gallop, and back in the house again, Darius3k. Welcome, gentlemen. How are we all doing? We good?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, it seems like there's only really good news that's coming out of Spurs at the moment, so it's not too bad, is it?
Can't argue with it.
Touch wood.
Touch wood. Yeah, let me do that as well.
A lot of stuff going off, a lot of things happening. Hopefully more signings to come, although people keep saying there's not been any official news come out of the website as yet. But once you hear the Fabrizio Romano, here we go, you think that it's on. Very rarely does that go wrong. I'm not actually known it to go wrong, to be honest, but it's Spurs. Anyway, let's not get into that. I'm going to put the banner up at the bottom, and this is what we're talking about tonight. Who will be the next young star for Spurs? We have had a couple of pre-season friendlies already. We've had some notable appearances, some notable performances as well. And there's quite a lot of youngsters that have been played. Nuno has taken his time to obviously bed in a lot of the under-23s, a lot of the under-18s over the last few games. I think the fact that we've had the Euros and Copa America being played as well, not all the players have come back and have come back over different periods of time. So he's got an ability to play some of these youngsters, train with some of these youngsters, see what they're like, and giving them first team opportunities. Although it's against the likes of Colchester and Leyton Orient, it's still man's football. And once you turn and playing in man's football, it's a whole different ball game from playing under 16s, under 18s, under 23 stuff. So, gentlemen, I'll start with you, Mike. What do you think of the academy so far in terms of the performances from some of the players?
Yeah, do you know what? I know it's been a bit of a bugbear with some fans. I think we might have touched upon this yesterday. Insofar as there's not enough talent coming through the door into the first team. However, if you look, the last couple of games, yesterday night and the game against Leyton Orient, there's a number of talented, and even if you go back into the FA Cup last season, Mourinho sort of gave a few opportunities to some of the youngsters then, and we have got we've got a considerable amount of young talent that have the potential, easily have the potential to get into the first team. Whether it's this year or never, whether it's they need like a loan deal out or they just need a little bit of time for settling in or not. But it's only a matter of time before they come through the door. I know we've got three on the talking point tonight, but there's Harvey White, Alfie Devine. You could list a whole load of names, and they're all equally as talented, in my opinion, anyway. So yeah, I'm quite excited to see all these youngsters come through and see how they develop, and hopefully they can all sort of settle in and sort of hit the ground running when called upon.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's been a real eye opener for me because it's very rarely you see, a whole squad of young players go on pre-season. So they always take 2 or 3, maybe more, to kind of bed them in, and it's usually more around the first team. But this is almost pretty much the majority of the youngsters, and I'm talking about under 18s here. We've got Dane Scarlett, who's 17. We're going to be talking about Dane. We're going to be talking about Paskotsi, and we're also going to be talking about Nile John. Those two are 18 and one's 17. So we're talking about boys in effect here, and they are performing at a level which is surprising. Not surprising in the fact that they can play at that level, but surprising that they've taken this opportunity and kind of grown with it. That's you usually get youngsters that are a little bit apprehensive, but these guys have come in, they've kind of slotted in. They must be all been training quite regularly with some of the first team anyway. And I think Jose started and kind of implemented that last season with a number of them, hence the reason why we had the likes of Alfred Devine, Harvey White all playing in the first team at some points in the Europa. Darius, I want to come to you of a younger member of the panel. What's your thoughts on some of the youngsters who are in the actual squad at the moment?
You know what? I'm not going to lie to you. I can't really remember many youngsters that really shone through from our academy at all since I've really supported Spurs. If you really think about it, the one that sticks out to me the most is Kane. I know that's probably recency bias, but he's the one that really took that mantle of being, you know, a Tottenham. I know he came from the Arsenal academy, but he's been here since he's 11, 12. And he really came to the academy, went on loan, and he made it his own. So for me, it's sort of, I think it was 2012 we upgraded or renovated our training facilities, and I know that we're sort of making extensions to it as we go on, but it sort of goes hand in hand with that. And you can see now that has caused almost a class of academy players to come up from one group, and that to me is a positive sign. I think you've got, they are 16 years old, I think 16, 17 now. Dane Scarlett, Alfie Devine, even Nile John. They're 16 to 18 years old. It's not really the level that you want to throw them into the first team, but I think it's that level before where you're kind of thinking, okay, if they're good enough, they should be getting put into the first team. If not, you can send them on loan. For me, though, the talent levels of these youngsters, especially Dane Scarlett, for me, I think he's ready for that first team. I think he resembles Mason Greenwood at Man United quite a lot, even the way that he plays and his finishing ability. I just think that his game intelligence for a 17-year-old, and so Alfie Devine as well, and Paskotsi as well. I have to admit, Paskotsi was very intelligent. Just the maturity of those young kids. I think that's the main thing that I look for in a when you separate a good youngster from a great youngster. It's that game intelligence and that know-all at that such a young age to sort of make decisions. For example, I'll give you can't remember which goal it was, the second or third goal, but the Paskotsi pass to Son, who put the ball in the box to Dele Alli. It was a first touch pass, and I think that's just a sign to me that he's thinking 2 steps ahead of the next player. And as an 18-year-old doing that, that's a good sign, and that can only mean that they're going to get better with better players around them, and being in a system that they obviously will get used to over time, with Nuno obviously teaching them the ways. And I think that him as well, being a good manager, a motivational manager, will also help their development as well, because you don't want somebody like a Jose Mourinho to sort of get on your case in case you make a mistake. You kind of want to be brave and fearless and make those mistakes as a young player. So I think it's a recipe for a good crop of youngsters to come up. And if you can have that crop of 4 or 5 as the spine of your team, they're going to want to play for that badge, and that's going to motivate everybody around them to want to play for that badge. I hate to use them as an example, but I think Arsenal are quite lucky in that sense now, where they've got a lot of players who are coming through that academy who sort of are making those older players sort of think, wow, if I don't sort myself out, I'm going to be out of that team. So I want the same at Tottenham.
Our youngsters coming in as well, they're confident, aren't they? That's what you can see. The confidence levels are massive. They're probably more confident, some of those first team players, to be fair to them. And for as you mentioned, for a youngster to come into that team and show those confidence levels, that's quite a lot of them, if not all of them, are showing. As I say, you've got to have a bit about you to just be able to walk into a first team and be like, yeah.
They didn't seem out of place, did they, when they were playing with these players? That's what I noticed. They didn't seem out of place. They seemed like they've been playing with those guys and at that level for a long time. And when you're 17 and 18 doing that, it is kind of scary. Whatever ability you have, if you can look like you're playing at that level already, then if you improve your ability, you can only get better as a player.
Yeah. I want to come to you. I want to come to you, Stu, because I want you to obviously give your own opening thoughts as well. Fine, yeah. But I'm just going to mention a couple of names here. We've had a couple of players of notable talent come through the Spurs ranks and have not quite made it. Marcus Edward, he was one of the recent ones. Again, very talented player. Didn't quite make it within Spurs. Whether or not he's still in the game, I'm not sure. There was another guy back in the day, John Bostock. I don't know if you remember him. Again, really, really talented. They were talking about him as being that next midfielder, likened him to kind of like the Patrick Vieira style. Again, not sure what's happened to him. But even now, we've got players. Troy Parrott, we've got Alfred Devines, Harvey.
Well, look at sorry to interrupt you, Sam. Look at Noni Madueke, who was at Tottenham, and he's at PSV now, and he's absolutely killing it at PSV. He's linked to Dortmund. So even recently, we've got players that are leaving and going on to do things.
And although we're even talking about 16, 17, 18-year-olds, we've still got a number of young players in here. Oliver Skip, Yafet Tanganga, Ryan Sessegnon, all these guys, 20, 21 and around that sort of age. So we've got a really, if you look at that nucleus from the age of 17 with Dane Scarlett up to the age of 21, 22, we're talking about Ryan Sessegnon, talking about Oliver Skip there. There's a real basis. Even Alfie White in terms of the goalkeeper, you're talking about a whole crop there that's a fully made, if they can all make it, squad. It's going to save a lot in the transfers. And this is one of the things about bringing this, I can't remember the guy's name that they brought in, ex-Derby coach. It's now the talent coach. Emerging talent coach. That's what he's been called as. So Stuart, just come to you now. What's your thoughts on the academy itself?
Well, I think there's definitely been, I don't know at what point, whether it was during the Poch era or whether it sort of ramped up a bit when Jose was here, but there's obviously just been some kind of sort of shift upwards, I think. And I think a lot of it's down to the amount of players that are actually being integrated into the first team squad for training. And I think that's been helping the likes of Nile John and Skip, and obviously Skip's benefited from a year at Norwich, obviously. But a lot of the other young lads as well, from being in and around the first team squad, knowing what it's about, being in with those sort of players who are a lot more experienced, they're fitter, they're bigger, and all that kind of stuff, because that just gets used to when you go out on the pitch and you're playing a more sort of high level game. You're not going to be as sort of awed or nervous or scared or anything like that. And I think there definitely just seems to be an attitude change in a lot of these youngsters now, where I think, you know, when you're talking about people like John Bostock and Marcus Edwards in particular, I think unfortunately that was a bit of that was they lost their way mentally a bit. I think they unfortunately with Marcus, I think he got hyped way too soon. You know, a couple of glimpses of him in pre-season, but he Pochettino was talking about him being sort of the next Messi or something ridiculous like that, and that went to his head, and you could tell that by just sort of how he was acting and a bit of stuff on social media or whatever. And I think as soon as you lose that drive, and I think you mentioned this yesterday, Sam, like you have to be driven all the time. And I think that's the really fine line that separates you from being a success at the sort of Premier League level, at the top end of the Premier League, and you might end up going down to Championship, League One, League Two, or whatever. Nothing wrong with that, but I think that it's not necessarily fitness, physicality, or whatever. It's the drive to.
And it's not, and as well as that, it's not even so much the talent. You know, it's about the dedication to the game, it's the consistency level, it's the professionalism. You've got to come into training every day, 5-6 days a week, whatever it is. You've got to do that consistently throughout the whole season, I should say.
That conversation that Scarlett was on yesterday when he did that little piece with Skip and Whiteman.
Yeah, I like that.
Talking about like his recovery and the fact he's focused. You're not going out, you're eating the right things and all that stuff. And like,
also the miss, he mentioned about the miss and how it plays on his head all the time. I know you shouldn't really think about that as a player, but I just thought, wow, if that's what you want to do, if you could go back in time and that's what you want to do, is change the way that you could have finished your first goal. That shows that you're so determined and motivated. It's a good sign.
They've got someone like Harry Kane who's there as a model professional who's come through the system and has shown what dedication, hard work, actually going out on loan, playing those games down where he's played at, coming back to the team, not getting in the first team, having his chance, taking his chance, and then really going for it. But what as well as that with Harry Kane is that he's continued that professionalism, and that's where a lot of these players are going to get that influence from. They're going to see that every single day in training and think, right, if he can do it, we can do it. And that's what I want to see from him, that consistency. Just a bit of breaking news here from Romario Caden. I'll put this up. Tottenham have agreed personal terms with Romario. Interesting. I didn't know that until just now. So that's good to know.
We just talked about that offline, weren't we?
Oh, fabulous. Right, let's get into this. Let's have a look at the first player I want to look at. He's had a great start to, I say, pre-season so far. Dane Scarlett, centre forward, part of the Tottenham under-18s team 2019-2020 at 16 years of age. Started playing with the first team pre-season friendly matches August 2020. Has scored 10 goals and 3 assists last season in 8 games. Made his Premier League debut early this year. Jose gave him that. Quoted something saying along the lines of, I wanted to make sure I was the first one to give this guy his debut, which he did. He was the youngest player to appear for the first team. That now record has been taken over by Alfie Devine. Scored 5 goals in the 6-2 win against Newport in the FA Youth Cup. Signed his pro contract till 2023, last season, age 17, which he is now. And scored his first goal against Leyton Orient. Gentlemen, talk to me about Dane Scarlett. Darius, this player, 17 years of age, literally just 17. He's been doing something in the off season. He looks like he's been working himself in terms of his upper body. You know, he looks like he's a player in the making, ready to be a second string striker for the likes of Harry Kane when he comes back. Would you say?
You know what? I think we just talked about Marcus Edwards and kind of overhyping his plays and sort of putting the gas in their head, but he seems like the crown jewel out of all of the youngsters in that academy. For me, he seems like Mason Greenwood. I know I said it before, but the finishing ability on that kid, like the way he takes his chances, left foot, right foot, the confidence in his own ability at such a young age. I just think that it's it's not going to be, I don't think it'll be him that will be the reason that he doesn't do as well as we think. I think it will be down to sort of either the club thinking too much of him and pressuring him too much, or maybe not making the right decisions on his career. I think this is the one we have to sort of take the most care on. If he does this season have a good one and sort of contribute more to the first team than we expect, because I don't think that he should be our second choice striker. I think that we should still go into the market and get another striker, in my opinion. I think he should be our main striker for the Conference League, and if Kane and or our other striker gets injured, he can come in. Or if you want to play 2 up front in cup games, he could be the 2. I don't think that he should be, the pressure shouldn't be on him at 17 years old to do what he's doing. But from what I've seen from him, it's his game sense, his determination. Like Stuart mentioned, that video with him, Skippy and Whiteman, it was just the way he speaks, the way he just carries himself. It's very, very mature for his age. And I can only see him doing well with that mentality. And his favourite player is Harry Kane. And if he models his career and his the way he acts off Harry Kane, I can only see him doing well. So I just hope for my sake and for his sake and for the club's sake that they manage him in the right way and don't obviously put too much pressure on him, and also don't sort of hold him back like for example Troy Parrott, because I think that Troy Parrott maybe could have had more game time in previous seasons and it might have given him more confidence. But Dane Scarlett, I really and truly, I think he is ready to play quite a big role in the first team, but like I said, not too massive. I think we should still get another striker, and he should be our 3rd striker this season.
Stuart, do you think he should go out on loan, or do you think he should stay with the team now?
I sort of disagree a little bit with Darius on this approach, because I think from the last few years we've struggled so much to bring in a second striker from outside the club. You know, we've brought in Llorente, Vinicius. You know, I've lost count of all these guys who. One, you have to try and persuade him to come in and sit on the bench when Kane's doing all the main stuff, and then you've got the expectation of them to come off the bench and actually do something. Whereas I think that the drive that this kid has, I think, is the thing that would set him apart, because he's not going to come onto the pitch annoyed that he's not starting or wondering, am I ever going to start for Tottenham, and all those things ticking around in your head. He will be coming on and say, right, in this 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, I'm going to do the best I can, exactly what I've been told to do by the manager, because I want to keep progressing in the first team. And then if you couple that with games in the conference, the European Conference League, some of the earlier cup games, depending on the opposition, obviously, I think that's the best way to manage it. I think certain players can go on loan. I think with him, and I think it's been shown with Parrott. Parrott's loan spell last year was really disrupted. I think he was at 2 different clubs. He didn't really start that much either. So I don't know how much that's done for his confidence. Shut up, Siri.
I'm not sure he understands.
Siri understands. I'm going to.
But I think that like Darius said, it is a fine balance, because you don't want to put too much pressure on him. But at the same time, it's like at certain times you just almost have to pull it on them to keep the drive going. Like with Skip, Skip just takes everything you throw at him, because he was doing the stuff he's doing when he was 18. Yeah. And now he's still progressing. Now I think the fact we've got people like Paratici in the club, we've got a lot of this new development team in the background as well. I think it seemed to me from a lot of the announcements that have been happening over the last week behind the scenes, I think youth is going to play a huge part in how this club is going to go forward, in how much of it we're going to utilise going forward. Because I think if you can bring in a core of it, like the spine of a team that is through the youth academy, or like a younger batch of players, and then you couple that with maybe a couple of older players. Barcelona did that really successfully for a number of years.
Look at Ajax. Ajax did it.
And Ajax
obviously did it fantastically. So
I think even Juventus, it's a model Juventus are massively obsessed with. Like their academy system is global.
I was going to say, there's one thing about academy system, and I just want to mention, I didn't want to cut you over there, but I wanted to just add it. The way Chelsea have done it, because Chelsea have got a very good academy, they use it more as a business model. They seem to try and get all the best players in, keep them, send them out on loan, bring them back, send them back out on loan, not really get through to the first team, unless you've got the likes of Mount, which has now come through, and the young Scots guy that's come through as well recently. But they seem to have a different approach to it. What I want to see from the Spurs is get these youngsters in the team. So I'm going to come to Mike. Would you play Dane against Man City if Harry Kane comes back injured?
Not a chance, mate.
No.
It'll be that'd be career suicide in my eyes.
Why?
One, he's just not. I don't feel. Although I think he's got the ability in terms as a striker. I've watched him quite a bit in the youth setup, and he was actually Tottenham were actually going to play against one of my friend's lads in the FA Youth Cup in the under-18s, but my mate's son got knocked out in the previous round. So they didn't face Scarlett on that. Otherwise, I would have watched it, but live. But Scarlett, in terms of his finishing, that's not even in question. I mean, he's just a goal machine in himself. But I just don't think he's strong enough. I think he's still got. Like if you watched that game last night, there was a few instances where, and I think we probably touched upon it, whereby the defenders went in the back of him, and Dane's gone flying. And Man City defenders, they'll just, I think they'll be too smart for it, and they'll know how to just keep him in their back pocket, and he won't be as much of a threat. Whereas Kane's got the experience, he's got the know-how, he knows how to play these defenders to his strengths.
I wouldn't be in place of Kane. Only if Kane was. I was just
even if he was injured.
Injured.
Even if he was injured, I wouldn't. Even if Kane was injured, I'd play Son up front or Lucas Moura. I just wouldn't. And in fact, I probably wouldn't play Dane in or against any of the top 6, maybe top 8 teams. If we was going to play him in the Premier League,
you know what?
I'd go down the bottom end.
It's that sort of thing where you've got about. I think it's about picking the right opportunities if he's coming on in the Premier League. Like, you know, if you're 3-0 up and stuff like that, or you know you've got a game. Well, with Spurs, you never know. You know, West Ham proved that. If he's got the opportunity to come on where the game is almost put to bed, that's the sort of situation you want him on, because if he scores a goal, that gets his confidence up. If he doesn't score, it's not the end of the world, but he's getting minutes in the Premier League. And I think that's the sort of thing I'm thinking of. There's no point trying to pressure him to try and be, Kane's backup, because we've got Kane's backup where if Kane's injured, Son will take his place, or Moura or someone else. We know this because it's happened every season.
I'd still rather bring in another striker, because then, from my perspective, I don't see the rush in pushing Dane through. He's only 17. He's still a kid in many respects. So I don't feel there's a need to rush him through in the first team. For me, if he's ready, he's ready. But I just don't feel, from a physical perspective, I just don't think he'll be as much of a threat. If I don't know, if you another season down the line and he's a bit bigger, stronger.
You look at people like Foden, you look at people like Pedri, you look at people like Vinicius Jr. These are all young lads, like, you know, who are pre-20, who are coming into major teams and actually doing well.
I'm going to say my bit on this. I'm going to say my bit on this.
We've got to change is we need to let these guys play.
100%. I think you have to throw these guys in. I'm not saying that it's an ideal situation. I'm saying if you're forced into it. Now, I'm going to take Arsenal as an example. Hate to do it, but I am. They threw Saka in. They threw Smith Rowe in. They've thrown a number of players in because they had to. They were forced to. What's happened with these players? They've shown why they are in Arsenal as a club. And I'm just thinking to myself, for Dane Scarlett, I look at his attitude. I agree with what you're saying about his physicality. It may be something that's not quite there yet. But I don't know if you can, let's wait. Let's just wait. There isn't going to be an ideal opportunity if Harry Kane is going to be there at the club. So I just think sometimes you're going to have to take a risk. If Harry Kane's not playing, and we don't, why is the purpose of bringing Vinicius in last season to do what we did? Waste of money. A real waste of money, in my opinion. Didn't do nothing. Didn't get the opportunity. Wasn't given any confidence. Now, if you play a 17-year-old player against Manchester City because Harry Kane's injured, what does that say? It puts a pressure on him. But if he's able, if he's the player that we think he is, he might take that. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to go on the pitch and score 3 or 4 goals, but that experience of playing against the league champions, as what Yaphet Tanganga did when he was thrown in against Liverpool, not quite the same age, but look what he did. Could tell by injuries, slightly pulled him back. I want to see these players and see what they're like under pressure. I'm not going to take away anything from his talent. I want to see him in big situations.
He's only 17 though. I know. I go back to the only person that has managed to sort of carry that sort of weight on his shoulders, and I don't think there's been anyone since, was Wayne Rooney.
Jude Bellingham. I'd say Jude Bellingham. He's killing it right now.
Sancho again.
If you look at the whole Dortmund team,
you're looking in Germany, though, aren't you? You're playing it's Bundesliga.
But he was bossing the championship. He was bossing the championship. Like for me,
you're talking about the championship. You're not talking about the Premier League.
But that shows character. If you've got a 16-year-old who's playing a lot of games in the championship, then that guy, I'm more impressed by that than somebody playing in the Premier League. That's just me because he's the main guy. And I'm just saying, like, I kind of get where you're coming from, Sam, where you sort of have to throw them in the deep end and see if they swim, because at the end of the day, that's what Dortmund do. My only point is there a need to do that with him? Is like Mike said, he's 17. You've still got a year or two.
He's only just turned 17.
Just turned 17 as well.
And he looks like a kid still.
Right, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, we should be relying on him. What I'm saying is you've got to see. Jude Bellingham is a prime example. If a player can go across to Germany at that age and boss it, he actually showed his talent level.
Best player against Man City.
And in the England team at 17, he should have been playing much more in that year, in my opinion. That is what you've got to do with these players. You go across to Germany, don't know the language, have got your family members not there. That shows how much maturity a player gets. Now, if you've got the right people around him at Spurs, you can protect him a little bit. If he's having a real mare, bring him off. But what I'm saying is you don't know. We can't just keep putting these players in Cotterwall, because at the end of the day, when you get to like 20 and 21, you're not even a young footballer anymore. We've talked about Oliver Skip and Ryan Sisson. They're not young anymore.
Look at Carter Vickers. He's a great example of that.
Yeah.
He's been on loan how many times, and I just think that now he's not good enough. He's just not good enough. But like he never really got an opportunity because he just sent him on loan, did preseason, sent him on loan. So it's kind of like,
Bournemouth are trying to. I think Bournemouth. There's something's happening with Bournemouth, isn't there? I think the only thing that is holding like any potential transfer is the asking price. I think initially it was like 5 million, and now since he's had a good season in the Championship, I think Spurs have bumped his transfer fee up to 10 million, and that's Bournemouth haven't got any money. So
that's a business deal. That's got to be a business. I'm going to move on to the next player because I want to move on because we've.
Can I just make a very quick point before we move on to the next one? Because it sort of feeds into the whole conversation, really. Anyway, I think a little bit of the sort of the shift in approach to the kids as well is, I think people within a lot of big clubs now are very, very aware that if these kids don't play, they won't renew their contracts, and they will go. They'll go over to Germany. They'll go to France because they know they will get game time. They know they will get first team football because in those leagues, in those clubs, they just seem to be more up for doing it. And I think
they just take the risk, won't they?
Yeah, and I think
that's a great point that you've made there, Stuart. Because this guy's only signed up until 2023. That's 2 years' time. So if you don't play this guy, send him on loan. Let him go. He's going to maybe get a little bit disillusioned. Why would he sign another contract? You know, you get 2 years left in your contract at 17. Well, I'm saying you can't force him to sign. Nobody can force him to sign. No, but it might be the right people around him. I would hope they would manage that situation. But what I'm saying is, if he's going to be gone, potentially, let's say his contract runs out in 20, that's 2 years' time.
Spurs won't allow that.
Well, I hope they wouldn't. That would be an absolute mismanagement.
But that's the thing. If he's not playing, he won't sign because that's what's happening. Chelsea are having an absolute exodus of academy players.
100% agree with that.
Just left Man City because he's not getting games at Man City. There's huge talent that is going abroad because they know they're going to play.
But Chelsea's just a churning machine, isn't it? They just churn players. It's a conveyor belt. That's all they are.
I think it's opportunities for players. These players want to see a pathway, but they want to play. They don't just want to see, I might get a couple of games in Europe, I might get the odd league. They want to have a few games. And like you were saying, if you're him, Dane Scarlett now, you signed your first pro contract, everybody's talking about him. So why would you, if you're not playing at Spurs, the club that you've been raised up, brought up, wanted to play for, they don't play you next season, you know what? Mum and dad might say, we can do something else. We don't have to sign. Your agent might be in your ear. Don't sign. Why would he sign? The pressure's then on the Spurs to then maybe then overpay him, then pay him more money than he's worth at that time. So it's a bit of a balancing act. Anyway, let's move on to the next player. Another player I really, really liked in the 2 games I've seen him play. Maxim Paskotsi, centre-back, joined our academy from Flora Tallinn in Estonia. Started new sets.
Right back, isn't he?
But
I think he's a centre back. I think he's a centre back.
Is he?
He's a centre back by trade. He's been playing right back. This is the point. This is what I was going through on this one. He's a centre back. Made first 2 appearances in the Estonian Cup, playing in the semi-final victory in 2019. Named as a substitute for the Estonian first team at 16. Sorry, no, in the Estonian first division at 16. Under 18 international, called into the senior squad earlier this year and started against Czech Republic again in March. Now, going back to your point, Mike, he's actually a centre back.
That wasn't my point.
Oh, no. Who said something about right back?
No, I think someone called in and I said, "Are you sure he's not played right back?"
Oh, he played right back for us, but he's a centre back. This is another
centre back for Estonia at the moment internationally, doesn't he?
Yeah, and on the official website on Spurs, it shows him as being a centre back. Now, whether or not they've seen something in his development that suggests he might be better off on the right-hand side, that's very similar towards Juan Foyth, because Juan Foyth wasn't he more of a centre-back, and then they kind of felt
we signed him as a centre-back.
100%. And this guy is very, very similar. There's a lot of talk about the similarities between him and Juan Foyth. I personally look at the 2 games he played, and I know we can start jumping up on down and saying, "Oh, this guy's the next big thing." But he's so composed on the ball. He's so composed in what he does. His decision making as well is fantastic. I really think he's got an opportunity. But again, 18 years of age. Is he going to get the opportunities ahead of Aurier, ahead of Doherty, ahead of Yafit Tanganga? What's he going to do? Are we going to be able to play this guy? Darius, what's your thoughts on this, on Paskotsi?
Well, just before we speak on Paskotsi, I was really sad that we lost Juan Foyth. I have always liked Juan Foyth. I've said he's criminally underrated. I think he wasn't appreciated. And now we've got somebody who's similar. I don't want the same to happen because... And another thing, I don't want him to play right back either because I don't think that will probably be his best position. I think he's a fantastic right back. I think he played fantastic in the 2 games that I've seen him playing right back. But if we're going to play potentially a 3 at the back or a 4 at the back, or if we're going to interchange between these 2 formations, him as a right centre back to me seems like an absolute no-brainer. Somebody who can take the ball out, who can carry the ball, who can defend well because he was a very good defender who got himself stuck in. I think I see him as an ideal right centre back. And then obviously, like you said, if we're not playing 3 at the back this season, he could be a third or 4th choice right back. So I just think that again, while going on loan for him might be a smarter option, just because defenders sort of get better with the more games they play, I believe. As I think that if you play a defender over 20, 30 games a season, they're going to be a lot better than obviously a defender who's going to be playing 5 or 10 games, maybe 20, 30 minutes in a game. So I think while it would be maybe better for him to go on loan, I really think he should stay. And I think the composure and again, the game intelligence that he shows as a young teenager it stands out to me. And hopefully we can keep him and make use of him because, like I said, he resembles Foyth, and there's room for players like that. But again, we've got Tomiyasu linked, and if he comes in, he almost is pretty much the same sort of profile player as well. So,
a question I'll ask,
though, isn't it? Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, no, I'm going to ask you this question, and this I don't know if it's a problem for some players. Now, the fact that he's a centre back by trade and he's playing really well at right back. Does that suggest that, he hasn't nailed down an ideal position for himself? And is that going to be a problem going forward for the player? Because I thought that was a problem for Foyth, personally, in the fact that he was a centre-back. And I potentially could see that being a problem for Yafit Tanganga if he doesn't say, right, I'm only going to play centre-back. I don't want to play full-back. Is that going to be a possible problem for Paskotsi?
I think a lot of it just depends on how the player has been developed as a youth player, because it depends. If you've spent the majority of your time coming through the system and you've literally all you've done is centre back, and then it's only sort of in this sort of latter start phase of your academy career that you're then being transitioned into right back, then yeah, it can potentially be an issue. But if they've, like Darius was saying, if they've seen something in training or in some of the other sort of games that they've been doing in the under 18s and under 23s where he seems quite adept at moving into that position, and by the looks of how he's been playing, he seems better to be deployed as a right back, because he 100%. Is like, even into because I've only seen him play in these 2 games. I know he's been playing in the under 23s and under 18s a lot, but these are the only 2 I've actually seen. His movement on and off the ball already is light years ahead of what I've been seeing from Aurier in about 4 or 5 years. That's how mental it is. And like Darius was saying before, like when he took that ball in and first time pass through the defender to get it, and knowing that someone was going to make that run, shows a level of understanding that a lot of our other right backs just don't do. And I think the modern game now is all about utility. If you could be a utility player in a team, whether that's, you're going across a whole position, left to right, or whether you can go from centre back to right back and vice versa, like Tomiyasu, I think that's a huge asset for a club, because it just means that if you get injuries, it's easier to handle those injuries. So with him, I think that will be how he's going to be used. And I think, if anything, if all we've been trying to get to at this point in the club is quality of depth in the squad. We've had a really good 11, 12, 13 players. As soon as you drop below that and you're trying to utilise it across multiple tournaments across the season, that's where we've come undone, because we've either actually used too many senior players when we haven't really wanted to, or the players that are coming into the group just aren't good enough. And I know it's Leyton Orient and it's Colchester, but it's just, there's certain things now that, I don't know, it's attitude, it's their just general how they manage their game that just seems so switched on and so much better than a lot of the senior players that we've been seeing over the last couple of years, especially.
It's a good point you make as well. Also, sorry to interrupt. It's just the fact that if you're with depth of squad as well, me personally, I would rather see an up and coming academy player come on as opposed to somebody like Lamela, somebody like a Winks. That's just me personally. Even if he's not better than him in that current moment, Lamela's 30 and Winks we already know is not good enough. I'd rather see an 18-year-old like Nile John, an 18-year-old like Paskotsi come on and potentially, develop their minutes, develop their game, as opposed to Lamela and people like Winks. No offense to them, but I just think it's better in general for them, for those players, and just us in general, the club.
But that's what we wanted. Like when Pochettino was first there, and we started seeing like Winks when he first came through, and when we had some of the other younger lads that were there coming through at the time, we were all cheering that on. And I think we just had this massive period where that got lost. And I think that's the sort of, when Levy's talking about, we've lost our way a bit. We were one of those clubs where we gave youth a chance, and that we lost that for a long time. Where, like you say, you're seeing bloody Lamela and Winks and all these players who absolutely do not give a toss about this club, and they've proven it time over time over time. But they're still starting ahead of all these young lads who are desperate to play for the club. They love the club.
Mike, do you think something's been seen in by Nuno to the fact that if the player is a centre back, and the reason I say that is because he's had an opportunity, it's the best opportunity to play a young player at centre back, given that I don't think Carter Vickers is going to be anywhere near the club. He must have seen something in training to suggest that right back may be a position that he's looking to play him in. He
looks more of a right back than a centre back.
So I mean, the guy, he's quick. He's good on the ball. I think he appears to have a better. I would say he's probably got a better footballing brain than Aurier, just from the couple of games that we've seen him play so far. I think he's probably one of the players that you probably could, out of the three that we've got on topic today, he's probably one of the three that you could probably take the risk and play more often in the Premier League than the other two, just because. I mean, he's already an international football player. I think he's got 5 caps, is it?
5, yeah.
So, and I think you can probably tell when he's been playing. You can probably tell he's another level above what you'd expect an 18-year-old to be playing at right back. He's got the confidence. He's quick. He can head a ball. He's got a good tackle. I think he's got everything that you would expect a right back to have. In order to say, yeah, you know what, I might take a gamble on you. And he's a gamble that I think could probably pay off. And
I think you're right.
Like with Aurier, if Aurier goes and we didn't bring another right back, to be fair, I'd probably give him a go.
Don't forget, we have got Doherty still. Everybody's kind of forgetting.
I forget about Doherty, but
Doherty's 28, 29, and I think last season, I think was I don't know what was going on, but I'm not being funny. When you're that age, and you're saying you're struggling to adapt to a different position. That's bullshit to me, man.
He was afraid of Jose. He just seemed like he was so scared.
He didn't get on with Jose, just like Luke Shaw didn't get on with Jose. That's exactly the same thing for him.
But Doherty isn't a natural right back, is he? I know you should be able to, at his age, you should be able to adapt to a right back.
Between a right back and a right wing back, really? Come on. The way we play the game, you're still expected to run up the pitch and track back. There isn't that much difference. It's not that complicated for him. Come on.
It shouldn't be, but there are some subtle differences in it, because you imagine you try to play Son at wing back and that's just never going to work. But there are some subtle differences.
It worked perfectly, Sam.
Probably would.
What I like about Paskotsi is his composure, and Gary Neville made this point. When you play right back, it's your positional awareness, your sense of where you are in comparison to where your centre back is, and then where your right forward is. Because you've got to be, as you said, that hybrid between defensively and also joining attack, and also knowing where you are in relation to the whole game. When you're on one side and you've got the likes of Moura going down, doing what he does and cutting in, your right back has got a prime example, like what Aurier does quite well when he's playing really well. He bombs on beyond him. You know, if your right winger then decides that he's going to be an outside player and going to go around the outside, he's got to then show the right intelligence. Right, I can make inside runs, and that's what I've seen him do in the games I've seen him play. Really good stuff.
The only thing that if you had a criticism about him, it would be probably the final third could do with developing. But you could argue, well, his final third wouldn't need developing if he's going to be a centre back. So it's one of them, isn't it? So I mean, personally, I think he's got everything to make a very good right back, and that positional awareness that he has got will come from having been a centre back, because you're that last cog in the team before striker goes on at goal. So his positional awareness and his space and reading of the game, it should be what it is, because he's a centre back. So he's got the pace. He's got. I like him. I
really like him.
Yeah, I think he's
Paskotsi is gonna.
Paskotsi.
I'm going to give up. I'll give up. I'm normally quite good with now. I'll just call him Maxim. There we go. I can say that. Don't want to disrespect the guy because he's a good player. I think he's a good example of this sort of shift in what we're doing in terms of that new role that's coming in, where it's the sort of like the scout who's going to go and basically scout all the best talent from around the world to bring into Tottenham, because that's the sort of thing that Man City and Chelsea and all that lot have done really well for years, and even people like Dortmund and stuff are absolutely amazing at that. And he seems to be a really good example of that, where we brought him in at 17? I think he was 17 when he came in. And it looks like he's been sort of fast tracked quite quick. He's gone right through the under-18s, right up to the under-23s really quickly, and now he's in the first team squad. And I think that's what we might see more of, where you might see that like one or two players a season getting signed in from outside the club who are 16, 17, and they're going to get fast tracked. So I think that's something that we might see more of.
It really is. Right, the last player we're going to deal with, midfielder, and here we go. Nile John, central midfielder, predominantly right-footed, but he's skilled with both feet. Joined the club when he was 7, played under 16 and 18s during 2018-19, made 9 appearances for under 18s all competitions, scoring twice last season, made 1 substitute appearance in the under 19 youth league in the 9-2 home win over. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, but anyway, stepped up to make his first.
That's Red Star Belgrade. I'm pretty sure that's Red Star Belgrade.
That's Red Star Belgrade. But I don't want to try. Anyway, stepped up to make his first team appearance at under 23 level this year, represented England at under 15, under 16, and under 17 level. Now, John, again, started against Leyton Orient, and I thought he was fantastic. I thought he didn't put Harry Winks to shame, but he certainly showed him at 18 years of age. That's what I want to see. You know, that's what I want to see. A player, show me your qualities. Don't care what your age is. Show me your qualities in a big setting against guys who are, you know, a level where you're, as Darius was saying, that they're going to be coming in with challenges, championship level players who are not messing about. They're coming in to do, and midfield, centre midfield, probably one of the hardest positions to play. I think he done really well. Pity he didn't get a start against Colchester, but Darius, I know you like this guy. What's your initial thoughts on Nile John?
I think I probably like him a lot because he reminds me of me a little bit when I used to play centre mid. But he's the modern. I'd say he's very close to a modern centre mid in terms of the energy, the ability with his feet, the tenacity. You look at, and I'm not putting these comparisons on him, but I'm saying you look at players like Pedri, who's sort of Nico Barella, who's sort of not the tallest centre mids, but they're like pit bulls. That's what we used to call them, like pit bulls. They get around, they'll hustle you, but they've also got the ability to go forward and get back. And I think for him, me personally, I think he should go on loan just because I believe there's too many centre mids in that team, and I do think they will probably get another centre mid in the market for him to really have an important or significant amount of game time and minutes in these competitions that are going to help him and develop his game. So if he goes on loan, I think you could really see him do better. I think, again, him and Harvey White are quite similar players. Those two players should go on loan. And I will say this only with the caveat of going on loan is it's very important for me, if you're going to send a player on loan, that you actually send them to a team where they're going to develop their ability. I know that game time in general is great, but I think that the club is so important that you send them to, because you look at Troy Parrott, he went to Millwall and Ipswich, and it's great that you get time there, but he wasn't really in a situation and position where I think that he's going to be able to develop his game. Whereas if you look at Oliver Skipp, under a manager like Daniel Farke playing for Norwich, who are a very good team, who are tactically, you know what I mean, they're being drilled very much so by Daniel Farke. He's a very tactically intuitive coach.
Careful with that name.
Sorry. Let me we're 10 minutes. We're way more than 10 minutes in, so we're not going to get nothing's going to happen. But no, in terms of just like that, just the manager that you choose to sort of send that player towards. Billy Gilmore's gone to Norwich now. Those sort of managers are going to be able to develop your plays even further. And I would say another great example would be teams like Brentford with Thomas Frank. Those sort of teams and clubs you should be really looking to send your really good up and coming youngsters to, because I think that you could get so much more out of just getting, you know what I mean, 2,000, 3,000 minutes in. If you can get a manager that can tactically teach them how to improve as well, it's only going to go on from there. Again, Emil Smith-Rowe is another example. He went to RB Leipzig. He didn't really play much, but just to be with Julian Nagelsmann every single day on the training field, you're going to improve as a player. So
I'll ask this to Mike first. Could he be another Josh Onomah? Because Josh Onomah, again, had that talent, really, really good, looked really good when he played for us, then was sent out on loan, never came back.
Yeah, that's the worry. And that would be the worry for me. I think he's a bit of a wild card. I think he's got stacks of ability. I don't think that's in question. His size, yeah, you could argue that he's a bit on the small size, but like Darius mentioned previously, he is a bit of a pitbull, isn't he? He's one of those that just gets around the pitch. But having said that, he's very confident, and the Leyton Orient game, he just seemed to always want the ball. So again, this comes back to that whole confidence thing. Where they're getting all this confidence from the under-18s, under-23s, and then they're coming into the first team and they're not phased in any way, shape or form. It speaks volumes for me. I think, like Darius said, I would probably still tip on the side of, yeah, he could probably benefit from going out on loan, but you'd have to carefully choose the club that he's going on loan to. Darius mentioned Brentford, and I think Brentford would be perfect for someone like him.
100%.
In fact, there's probably I'm surprised we don't send quite a few of our youngsters to Brentford. I know they're probably coming. Well, I know it's that whole where they're a Premier League club now, so there's that to contend with. But when they're in the Championship, we should have been sending out some of these lads to them then, because they would have massively benefited from all the technology that they use at Brentford in developing their players. And even they use the technology for scouting. I know they're heavily involved with technology for scouting players. So I think some of these players probably would have benefited massively at Brentford. But with Nile John, yeah, I would send him out on loan, but it'd have to be carefully picked in terms of club-wise where he goes to.
The challenge he has is that's a part of the pitch that we're absolutely stacking at the moment. Yeah. You know, if you think about, what have we got? Højbjerg, Sissoko, Winks, Skipp,
Ndombele,
Celso, Dele. You know, we've got so many, and that's the only thing that I think will work against him for a while is just the pure volume of players that are in and around him. If you've got the ability, though, you should. Of course, 100%. And I think the person that he reminds me of and that has got me a little bit excited with Nuno being there. He reminds me a bit of Morgan Gibbs-White in terms of sort of how the sort of age Morgan Gibbs-White was when he sort of first broke through into the Wolves first team. He's very similar age to what Nile John is now, and Nuno was quite happy to give Gibbs-White that kind of opportunity quite a bit.
And Nuno gave a lot of players that age that sort of opportunity. Nori, all these players were getting like little 20-minute cameos, and they were getting better with those minutes.
We're going to be in 4 competitions next season. There's going to be plenty of game time across all of it, and the Conference League is going to be such a slog because it starts early,
very soon.
The only thing with this,
I agree. I was going to say I agree with what you were saying, Mike. I'll let you finish your point. Sorry to come across you. I agree with your point because I think we're quite well endowed in the midfield area now, and it's probably likely that we're going to play certain systems that maybe don't allow him to play, because I don't think he's a number 10. So if you're playing 2, you're playing a 4-2-3-1 potentially.
He's a number 8, isn't he?
You're looking at a number 8 position for him. Skip, Højbjerg, Ndombele, possibly Lo Celso. That's 4 players ahead of him
already.
You're not
going to get it now.
I'm not
Skip,
sure.
I'd skip to that.
Oh, I already said Skip. And that's what
I
think Skip's personally, I'm really looking towards Højbjerg and Skip to really give us that solidity. Yeah. And then maybe on Dembele and Lo Celso fight it out for a position. But then you've got Dele Alli to throw into the mix as well.
Well, if you notice, and I know, Mike, you were saying this, the 4-3-3 that he seems to be playing seems to be just a 3 in midfield to sort of kind of do what he wants. Because Dele was dropping deep.
He was doing what he
was. So all 3
he was almost in that number 8 role, wasn't he?
Yeah, they were all intertwining between each other and making sure that one was covering. So I do believe that the sort of DM, Højbjerg playing as a DM, I don't think he's going to do that. I think you'll see Højbjerg playing a lot like he played for Denmark. And so having 2 players work in tandem with each other. I don't think that works more. I think it works better, to be honest.
Well, that's the old midfield. That press to be higher up, isn't it?
That's the old mid. That's what this is what I'm saying. I really got a little bit irritated when we started to compartmentalize defensive midfielder, attacking midfielder. You're a midfielder. You've got to be able to do everything in midfield. That's why it's one of the hardest positions. You've got to be able to take the ball, dribble with it. You've got to be able to shoot. You've got to be able to tackle. You've got to be able to intercept. You've got to do everything and do it quite well. So when you say I'm a defensive midfielder, that means you're saying to me I can't go forward. Well, Højbjerg disproved that when he played for Denmark and showed exactly the qualities.
Was it 4 assists? 4 assists in his
from a midfielder, and he's been labelled as this defensive midfielder and dropping back into a back 3 to make a back 3. Forget that. Do your job. Take the ball from where it's took from your box to their box. Box to box midfielders is what we need. That's what the game should be about. I don't know where we got lost in that.
I think Højbjerg's style of play is very I'm not saying that he's on a par with this player, but his style is very similar to Roy Keane insofar as he's a box-to-box midfielder. He's tenacious. His work rate is just ridiculous. I mean, how does someone play the volume of games that he's played? I think he played every game in the Premier League, didn't he? In every minute or something silly like that.
Yeah, he did.
It's just a freak.
And Skip played every single game for Norwich until he got injured on the.
Until he got injured.
I'm telling you, those 2 are going to be dangerous together.
Those 2 in midfield, and you're not worrying about them going off after 65 minutes, like Belly and Lo Celso. Those 2 will boss our midfield, 100%.
Guys, can you imagine? Remember at the back end of last season when we had Ryan Mason, we was almost in turmoil. We haven't got any players. What we're going to do? Who's going to be coming in? I don't want to watch Spurs anymore. That's it. I'm done. And now we're talking about players 18 years of age, 17 years of age. Not even talking about the ones of 20s and 21s and 22s anymore. Yeah. This really is a real swing in terms of, how football goes. It doesn't take a lot. The right structure. And I think that's the basis of this whole thing. Structure in place. Not necessarily 100%. Having to have the manager that's this, the Ancelottis or the Mourinhos, whatever. It's the structure, and I've always maintained that.
But we've been barking this, havening we? Like we've all been barking this.
We've been saying this for so long. Get the structure right. Know what your philosophy is. What's your playing style? Adapt that. Bring the players in that matches that. And Paratici, I'm hoping, and no, we've all been on the various WhatsApp groups and the forums and discussions. I hope this is now what people are now going to believe in and not just think, oh, no, it's just, this is what we've got to see. And I want to see some of these youngsters being brought through. They're hiring talent, emerging talent coaches. That shows me there's a massive sea change within Spurs. Yeah, it's a real breath of fresh air. I'm going to come around to all of you. We've got a game next week, Wednesday, against MK Dons. Who's you want to see playing in that, Stuart?
I think this could potentially be one of the first ones that we see a lot more of the senior team. So I'm expecting to see people like Ndombele, Doherty or Aurier. It depends who's back and how long they're back for, because I know different players are coming back at different times. So I'm definitely expecting a couple more of the first team to be integrated into that first half team. But I want to keep seeing the young, if they keep that three, Skip, Nile John, or let me now,
Paskotsi.
Paskotsi and Skip and Scarlett. I'm hoping that they can just keep a consistent run going through pre-season, because I think it'll do them the world of good. But just while everyone was talking then, I was having a quick look on the Tottenham Hotspur under-23s website, and the amount of players that we haven't even talked about.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
It's insane. Absolutely insane.
Not all of them will make the grade. Let's get it straight. Not all of them will make the grade.
Already carrying about in the under-23s and stuff, who've done really well in the under-23s Premier League and stuff like that. Really impressive.
But even the ones that don't make the grade, if we can get some money from them, then it's good business.
Sure. Darius, who do you want to see playing next week?
That's a good question, I want to see Paskotsi play as a 3 and a centre back. I personally want to see him play as a centre back. I think that's just me. I'm not me. A right back should be, and I'm young, so I don't really like the Gary Neville style right back. I think a right back should be as attacking as possible. So yeah, I do believe that he's a great defender and a decent attacker, but I think that he should be playing in the position that he's been playing his whole career. I do think that's something I do want to see. And then also I want to see Dane Scarlett just play as much as possible. He's one of those guys. He's one of those players, and this is how I know that I really like a player. And we've mentioned him a lot of times. And this is me just being completely being a Pedri fan. But Pedri is one of those players where he just, when you watch them play, you just you're mesmerized, and you kind of you just enjoy watching them play. And Brian Hill has that sort of aura as well, with the ball, the technicality.
We've talked about him.
We've not even spoke about him. Do you know what I mean? We've not even spoke about him. So it's like there's certain players that just make me really, really excited. And that finish, the finish that he put away with his left foot to hit the post didn't even really need to look at the goal. And then also don't forget that disallowed volley as well against Colchester.
Great finish. I'm telling you,
man, he's ice cold. He's our little Mason Greenwood, and hopefully he can be as good as we're making him out to be. Because I don't want to put him on this pedestal and him fail, but I just don't see a player with that sort of mentality and that drive and determination ever doing bad. So it may sound selfish. We may not even really need to see him that much, but I just want to see Dane Scarlett play as much as possible. And it'd be great to see Nile John play as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Mike, who you excited to look for from the youngsters to play possibly over the next few games?
I would certainly like to see the three that we've just mentioned tonight. Definitely, I would like to see them three play. I'd like to see Alfie Devine. I want to see him. I really like him as a footballer. He's young. I know he's young. I think he is 16, isn't he?
He's 16. I think he might have turned 17. He's younger than Dane Scarlett.
He's turned 16, so he's still very young.
Yeah, but was he the one who scored in the FA Cup for us
against Marine? Yeah,
Marine. Yeah, I want to see him. They're from the youngsters. They're the main ones. Oh, obviously Scarlett. Yeah, I've mentioned the three plus the ones I just mentioned. So yeah, those are probably the main ones. I don't want to see Aurier play. I know someone mentioned it. I don't want to see him play. You're not getting pre-season. Go get it. Same as Sissoko. You're not getting pre-season. Get another club.
I think
breaking news, boys. Christian Romero is now very close to joining Spurs. His contract will be until 2026. Tottenham bid
Romero.
Okay, I thought you said
40
somebody else.
million plus 10 million in bonuses.
Hello.
Wow.
So that's
this is what I mean.
There's Romero.
He ain't missing about, is he?
He's not messing about.
He's cooking.
There's a lot of rumours about certain players going out. Davinson Sanchez being one of them.
I don't want to see him in pre-season. There's no point. You're done.
He gets quite straight from wherever he is, straight to his
got to take your place.
People are saying.
I was going to say, To be honest, what about Dennis Sirkin as well? He's a guy who.
I forgot about him.
He's injured apparently, isn't he?
He's a great left back.
Okay.
Great left back. Well,
There's a few
I think
players.
he's got the potential to be a great left back. Let me rephrase that.
There's definitely a few players that we haven't even talked about, and we could do another show on that. But I think those three were the ones I've seen from the 2 games that we played. Now, it's going to be interesting, obviously, with the game next week against MK Dons, and then we've got the bigger test coming up, shall we say, against the likes of Arsenal and Chelsea, where this is where you're probably going to be honing down into who's likely to start. Will we see what a couple of those players play? I think we will. So just a quick shout out to all those watching. Stu Mac, Toxic Headshot, Gunner King, what's his name? Roachy Baby, Mr. Silver Fox, Snipes Fire, Romario, Caden. Thank you guys for watching. It's been a really good show. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Please hit that like button. Hit that like button. Just do it for us now. If everybody watching was to do that, that's loads of likes we're going to get. And it just helps the channel grow, helps us keeping this content going as well. Gentlemen. Stuart, Darius, Mike, fabulous. If we get some players signed officially, I know we've got them almost. We might have to do a show on Saturday. How about that? It could be it could be a special one.
Three signings.
Aye, could be a good one. But let's say, remember all them manager shows we did? We did the Black we did what's his name? I think we forgot his name now.
Did we have Ten Hag? We did a Ten Hag one. We even did a
Ten Hag one. We did a Poch one. What's the other? Fonseca. That's it.
Fonseca. Didn't even have a chance to do the other one because
Romano. He's put too much out. He's put his neck out of the line too much on this. For not to be true, hasn't he? Sure.
Yeah, this one.
That would ruin him if he didn't get any of these 3 right.
Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being on here. The panel, as always, fantastic. And we'll see you again soon. Join talking.